Stegosaurus. Despite his great size, Stegosaurus just could not get rid of the creatures snapping round his feet. As fast as he turned, so the sharp-toothed little dinosaur ran round him, leaping and yapping at his sides. Stegosaurus was normally more than a match for Ornitholestes, but he was now too tired to run or fight. The day had been long and hot, and he and his herd had walked a long way. As the little dinosaur grew more excited, it began to take less and less care. At last, it rushed towards Stegosaurus's back legs, and the great reptile took his chance. He swung his spiked tail, and Ornitholestes fell to the ground, stunned and wounded. Stegosaurus plodded away. The last glimmer of red was fading from the sky. Stegosaurus was so far behind his herd that he could hardly make out the animal's shapes against the trees ahead. By the time he reached the forest, it was dark, and he could see only shadows. But he could hear strange noises. He walked a little way, trying hard to stay awake, but he was too tired. Slowly, his eyes closed, and he sank into a deep sleep. All night, the woods rang with howls, squawks, and bellowing. When Stegosaurus woke in the morning, the birds were already singing, and the forest floor was speckled with light. He raised his head to look about, when suddenly the tree next to him shook and shuddered, and the bellowing noise he had heard at nightfall boomed out again. An Archaeopteryx squawked and flapped out of the swaying tree. Stegosaurus backed away as a huge gray shape loomed up before him. Now he could see where the bellowing came from. The shape was a Brontosaurus. There was a whole herd of the giants marching through the swaying trees. Stegosaurus watched as they ripped the curving fronds from high on the trunks. He looked for his own herd, but they were nowhere to be seen. So he followed the giants, staying just far enough behind not to disturb them. Stegosaurus cropped the fronds on the forest floor, while the Brontosaurs stretched their long necks to reach the topmost branches. After some time, the herd stopped feeding and trundled out of the forest. Stegosaurus, close behind them, blinked in the bright sunshine and felt its warmth on his back. He marched quickly after the herd, away from the damp gloom of the woods. Soon they reached a small waterhole. The Brontosaurs waddled into the water, which was just deep enough to cover and cool their backs. Stegosaurus stayed on the bank and ate the thick ferns as the giants wallowed and bellowed. The ferns were hot and steaming in the fierce midday sun, and so high that Stegosaurus was completely hidden by them. Suddenly, he heard silence and then a rumble. Peering through the greenery, he saw the Brontosaur herd clambering up the slippery bank of the pool. Only one animal could not keep up with the others as they galloped away. It was an old male. Behind him sped Megalosaurus, his great mouth gaping. The hungry reptile closed on the Brontosaurus and leaped on his back. But the old dinosaur's hide was too hard for Megalosaurus to grip, and he lost his balance. As he fell, the Brontosaurus lashed out with his tail and left the attackers stunned. Stegosaurus stayed well behind his screen of ferns until the dreadful creature had gone. Now, all was quiet, but Stegosaurus was all alone. There were no other creatures to warn him of danger, and none to hide or run with if danger came again. So he made his way back to the woods. It was cool beneath the trees, and there were many hiding places. He kept near to the edge of the wood, moving slowly and silently. The ground rose, and the forest grew thicker. All at once, Stegosaurus came to a break in the trees. He heard the sound of rushing water, and there in front of him was a waterfall. The water tumbled down a steep slope, splashed on the rocks below, and babbled noisily away. Stegosaurus drank from the cool stream and then followed its course. After a time, the stream widened and the fish-filled water began to flow more gently. Stegosaurus rested for a while and then went on. He had not gone far when he heard a sound he knew well. It was the call of a female Stegosaurus ready to mate. He could not see her, so he headed for the clump of bushes from which the noise had come. As he neared them, he caught sight of the female and quickened his pace. But just as he reached her, another male Stegosaurus came roaring towards him. The animal stopped a few paces away and growled fiercely. Stegosaurus saw that his rival was old. Two of the spikes on his tail were broken, and his hide was pitted with the scars of old wounds. Stegosaurus wanted the female for himself, so he challenged the old male by growling back at him and charging at him. The old male charged too, but he was no match for the younger Stegosaurus. After a short fight, the old animal lumbered away, slowly but unhurt. Stegosaurus approached the female. He walked towards her, turning his head from side to side and swinging his tail. She growled a warning to keep away, but he took no notice. Instead, he walked slowly round and round her, still swishing his tail. After a while, she stopped growling and let him come even closer. Then she allowed him to mate with her. The two animals stayed by the river until the evening sun began to color the cliffs and the shadows of the cycads grew longer. Soon, the insects that had hovered and darted all day over the river were gone. It was almost night. The female Stegosaurus listened to the sound of her herd calling as they lumbered off to rest. Then she and her new mate set off to join them. Stegosaurus would once again have other animals to travel with, and his mate would soon lay her eggs.